Hello, my name is Jacob Kamhis, and I'm your host for the next installment of Hawaii's Future in Clean and Renewable Energy. A while ago, I released a program, The Future of Clean Energy. This is the next one. And today we're going to spend some time with Governor David Ige to discuss not only the future, but what's going on in the present. So join me. Right across the street, we're going to the state capitol. Governor David Ige, Hawaii State Governor, glad to meet you, sir.
Glad to meet you.
Thank you for taking the time with us today. I know it's a busy schedule. We're in the middle of the legislative session as well. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on in Washington, D.C. too at this point.
Yes.
I've been hearing in the news that the Trump administration is going to be going more toward fossil fuels, possibly fracking, clean coal. I've also heard some reports that renewable energy may be part of it. I don't know how true they are.
Well, I do know that there will be changes at the federal level, but I think the strength of Hawaii's clean energy effort really comes from, I think, two different places. You know, I think first of all, it's very clear as the only state with a commitment to 100% clean energy for electricity, that it really is kind of a people's mandate. You know, as I go around and talk with people, they're proud that we have made a commitment to a different future, a clean energy future. And I think that's a reflection of the state legislative support for it. And people get excited when I go and talk with them. So that's a very different kind of position than it might be in any other state. And there is no other state that is totally isolated and has to be self-reliant. Yes, there will be changes at the federal level, and I think the strength of our federal partners, I think, are different. As you know, the Department of Defense here has been a major player and major partner with lots of our clean energy projects. And the most important part of that is that the Department of Defense commitment to clean energy is really from sustainability and self-reliance. They don't want to be dependent on foreign fuels.
So strategically, it's a benefit for them not to be reliant on that.
Absolutely, and they've made a commitment that is even more aggressive than the state of Hawaii.
Wow.
To be on clean energy. And so, you know, they've initiated and you know, we have a memorandum of understanding with the U.S. Department of Navy, and we'll be doing a solar farm out in Pearl Harbor. We also have the biofuel plant that we are partners with, the public and private, the Army and HECO, in putting the biofuel plant out at Schofield. And that improves the resiliency of our network because it's the first generating facility that is not at sea level, not at the shoreline. So certainly would be in a much more strategic position and not subject to tsunami or other natural, less prone to natural disasters than it might be if it were on the shoreline. So we do have a strength in a partner from the Department of Defense perspective. We also have had a strong partnership with the U.S. Department of Energy.
That's the one I was going to ask you about.
And that's the one that probably would be greatest at risk. You know, but I do think it's a combination of working together on all of those things.
Have there been any discussions with public-private partnerships? Any investors want to get into it? Because right now, Hawaii seems to be a very well-known place, an international test bed for new projects. Right now, we have, about 65 clean and renewable energy projects going on statewide.
Certainly, I've heard from many investors who are interested in making investments in renewable projects. You know, they categorize them as infrastructure projects that are fundamentally needed to keep our community running and that will generate a consistent income stream for a long period of time. So there is a host of people that are interested in making investments to be partners in these renewable clean energy projects. So it certainly has helped, and we do know that there is a broad interest.
So basically, there's going to be a reshuffling
Yes,
instead of a termination.
absolutely. I definitely do not see it stopping. It really is, there might be different partners involved. We do know that there is tremendous international interest. We know that the investments that are being made in photovoltaic technology, in battery storage, in other clean energy sources are driving prices down.
Mm-hmm.
And we are seeing projects now below the avoided cost of oil, which
Right.
helps. Not only gives us the benefit of saving from buying foreign fuel, but it also brings the price down for the consumer.
Well, President Trump likes to save money and cut costs, so maybe he'll see a benefit to supporting renewables.
Yes, I certainly think that. So I do think that the dynamics are changing all the time. I think that we continue to be steadfast in our commitment to 100% clean energy for electricity.
I also saw pictures of underwater turbines
Mm-hmm.
and of various, I mean, the ocean is really powerful. I mean, when we look at it, we go to the beach, we watch a sunset. It's
Yes.
very calm and peaceful. But
It is.
if you go into the ocean, you'll see that how
I-
powerful it is sometimes.
Well, and I think when you talk to people who make a living on the ocean and in and around, and it's to many of us who lay people who may not be so observant, you don't see it, but there are many currents in and around the islands. There are a number of currents off the Asia coast that will run 3 to 5 miles per hour forever, and some of those kinds of ocean turbines, present the opportunity again for creating energy out of what's naturally there. I don't believe we have any of those consistent currents in Hawaii, but I think the technology and the interest all around the world in clean energies is really increasing research and development and other opportunities that will help.
Mm-hmm. We all know that when we live here, we expect things to be more expensive. A book was written, The Price of Paradise, remember that one? We know that it's a paradise tax. When I'm on the mainland, I have producer meetings, and sometimes I go shopping in LA, and it's amazing what I can buy there, and I come back here, and sometimes my jaw drops when it's amazing. So the price of electricity is a big price for consumers and businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that businesses here sometimes have a rough time. Energy costs can be expensive. So I've been following some information from the U.S. Energy Information Administration.
Mm-hmm.
We have here from this agency, Hawaii, the price per cents per kilowatt hour,
Mm-hmm.
which is how the electricity is marketed. So for Hawaii, for residential, it's a little over 28 cents.
This average statewide.
I assume statewide, but we know that neighbor islands are always more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the next one, in terms of states, is Connecticut at 19 cents. So that's almost a 9-cent difference
Mm-hmm.
per kilowatt hour. The lowest is Washington State at about 9 cents. The commercial side for businesses is a little less, but it follows the same pattern with Hawaii being on top. I was wondering, do we have a potential to do something about this with renewable energy? I mean, we are revamping the infrastructure here. is it possible to support businesses and help consumers by reducing electrical costs somehow?
Well, I think it's two different things I think that we need to be aware of and balance. And obviously the cost is the primary driver. We are seeing for the first time that the clean energy projects are actually coming in pricing below
Really?
the avoided cost of oil. There'll be
These are solar, these are wind? Solar.
Primarily solar
Mhm.
at this point. The wind projects are similarly in and around the same raw generation cost of between 9 and 12 cents per kilowatt hour. So we do see that the technology and the relentless drive for the technology side has brought in solar down to below the current avoided cost of oil. And as you know, the cost of oil is low. And so we are seeing the opportunity now for solar projects to actually be able to not only deliver clean energy, but to help reduce the cost of energy that we're paying. The other thing that we are seeing, and so, I was at the blessing for the only closed cycle biomass to energy plant on Kauai, for example, and I know that is priced, and the power purchase agreement is higher than that average cost. But it's the first closed loop plant, so we'll be planting eucalyptus. They are burning albizia. They are on Kauai trying to get into the forest, trying to take out the albizia as an invasive species, and looking to burn that for energy. So I do think that it is weighing, because rather than us sending that closed loop biomass plant will reduce our importation of fuel oil by millions of gallons a year, right? So rather than us taking and sending millions of dollars out to purchase fuel to generate the electricity, we are going to be hiring people to be planting and harvesting and preparing the biomass to burn.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there is a added value to keeping the money in the state, to hire people to work that forest, to run the plant facility, rather than shipping the oil out. So I do think it gives us maybe more stability and gives us more control over what that costs. We're not dependent on the oil cartels, right, pricing whatever they would want to, and us having to purchase that, and then we create the local jobs. So I think that you'll begin to see the distributed generation changing to the different options that we have available, and there are things that are becoming less expensive than oil. There are those closed loop biomass projects that we are continue to work to get to. We do need to find a biofuel, some kind of biodiesel or something to generate firm power, and there's lots of interest and research in what crops might be the most productive.
The state is researching, and
the University of Hawaii,
uh-huh,
and private interests, because they do know and they do see there will be a need for base load generation. We need to have some kind of power like biomass or biofuel that we can reliably generate power when the sun isn't shining or when the wind isn't blowing.
Mm-hmm. I got one final question. We have the military on Oahu has a lot of land.
Mm-hmm.
and Oahu is getting urbanized. Is it possible to develop some kind of partnership where military land can be used for installing solar projects for supply to consumers?
Well, we actually signed a memorandum of understanding for a solar project out in West Loch. And essentially we'll be using federal land, and the output would be put into the commercial grid. You know, I do know that they'll be using portions of that energy to fuel Pearl Harbor, but they are generating more than they would need.
I see.
And that is going into the public grid.
So they could use what they need on their
Right.
plant, but anything else can go to
Right.
support the grid.
Right.
Well, that's really good. So, anything else you'd like to say or add?
No, I mean, I think that I'm excited about the energy future. I know that there will be changes at the federal level. I think we will continue to move forward because our commitment is broader, and the community supports a clean energy future. I think we all see the value.
Yeah, we do. Okay, thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you.
Hello, today we're with Blue Planet Foundation, and we're going to be talking to Melissa Miyashiro, the Chief of Staff, and also Richard Walsgrove, the Policy Director, on a lot of important topics. This is an important organization that's been tracking what's been happening with energy, and they've been around for a while, and they're doing a lot of good things. The first thing I noticed when I received Richard's email was that it said, clearing the path for 100% clean energy. What does that mean?
You know, one of the biggest challenges in our work is trying to explain things simply. Energy is complicated. It touches our lives all day long, every day. But trying to encapsulate that in one sentence is really hard. So we chose the one sentence, clearing the path for 100% clean energy, because it's got the things that are really important to us. I'll start from the end. 100% clean energy. The idea of a sustainable energy economy means that we can't use fossil fuels anymore. Fossil fuels are depleted resources.
Not at all.
Not at all. It's just not sustainable. It's not in our future. It's causing climate change. It's causing economic harm when you look at the volatility of the prices here. So 100% renewable energy, or 100% clean energy, that's our guiding star. And then the concept of clearing the path, I mean, again, you look at energy and you think about who makes energy decisions around the globe. We're talking about massive companies, large investments, big governments. How can a nonprofit in Honolulu, Hawaii make a difference? We're certainly not going to go and buy ExxonMobil and put them out of business. I mean, that's just not the way things are done. Clearing the path means we choose really strategically those key barriers that are maybe slowing down the renewable energy transition. We try to get those barriers out of the way.
For example?
Well, policy barriers, for example.
With state government, with business?
All of the above. For a long time, the state of Hawaii didn't have an official goal for its renewable energy transition. You go back to, I think it's 1977, there was a plan for how the state could get to 100% renewable energy, and it languished for 30 years. Nothing happened with that
So there's
plan.
got to be a bridge to cross.
Yeah, we need to have a vision. We need to know where we're going. I mean, every journey starts with deciding on the destination, right? So that's I think a good example of a policy barrier that we've worked on. We've tried to make sure that everybody's on the same page, that we can agree the goal is 100% renewable energy.
Okay, and so tell me, Melissa, I saw on your website that there are New Year's resolutions that the organization has, and then I said, well, what about your New Year's resolution? And you said, we don't have one, we have 4.
Yes, we have 4 New Year's resolutions, so things that we really want to focus on in 2017. The first is 100% clean transportation. So Richard mentioned about our 100% renewable energy law. That law actually only applies to electricity. So we have a 100% renewable electricity goal. We have an energy efficiency goal. So it's time to set a clean transportation goal. So that's one of the policy initiatives. That's one of the barriers that we're going to look to clear in 2017 and focus our efforts there.
Okay.
So that's the first one.
Your first one?
Yeah, the second one is student leaders. So we want to develop and give the tools that the next generation of clean energy leaders
High
needs.
school, college?
Our existing programming focuses on high school, middle and high school students, but we're really expanding our educational efforts this
So
year.
your organization can go to schools. Can they help with lesson plans? Can they provide materials?
Exactly, so that's where we're headed. So we're going to be expanding our educational offerings. We're going to be doing classroom visits and workshops and working with teachers to really give the kids the tools that they need, because they're going to be the ones implementing these solutions and coming up with the innovations to really get us to 100% renewable energy.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third New Year's resolution is we want to make energy efficiency sexy again.
Oh,
So we see energy efficiency as the true bridge to 100% clean energy. So if we're more efficient, that means we'll need fewer fossil fuels on the road to 100%. And then finally, we want to make sure that 100% really means 100%. So we want to close any loopholes, and Richard can speak more to what those might be, but really close any loopholes so that 100% renewable energy means 100% fossil fuel free. So those are our goals for.
well, good. Well, I hope these New Year's resolutions are kept.
We will be working hard to make sure that they are.
Okay, thanks a lot for your time today.
Thank you.
So I was also looking at the energy report card, Richard. Blue Planet has an energy report card. Here it is right here. Can we focus in on it? Well, there are certain categories that got my eye. First of all, in terms of efficiency, which is the per capita use of energy, Hawaii, this is about Hawaii, it's A minus. So I guess we're doing okay on the efficiency side.
That's our best grade, and it reflects reality. The reality is, over the past few years, I think our fastest growing source of clean energy has been energy efficiency. Right, the cleanest energy, the cheapest energy, is the energy we don't waste. So those efforts are on track, and we look at this. The report card is objective. We look at the data. We look at where we are today. We look at where we want to be. We draw a line between those 2 points, and if we are doing better than the line, we get an A. If we're doing a lot worse than the line, we get an F, and all the other grades are in the middle.
Good, good. And the next one is a B plus on renewables. Can you tell us a little bit about that? That's not bad. It's not an A, but it's not bad.
So there's our second fastest growing source of clean energy. It's renewable energy generation, primarily on the electricity side. This is things like solar power, wind power. If we look in the past few years, and this data is reflecting where we are today, so it's really this amalgam of what we've done the past, say, 3 or 4 years. Rooftop solar energy has been leading the charge. We've seen that become the biggest source of clean energy on
All
this
you have to
end
do
of
is
the world.
fly over the city.
Right, or look out the window.
Or look out the window, yeah.
But we're also seeing other forms of renewable energy that are bubbling up, and so again, we look at how much renewable energy generation we think we'll need to get to 100%. Look at where we are today. We're ahead of the curve, so a B plus on that category.
Not bad, not bad. Economics is a C plus. What's going on there?
Well, here's the frustrating thing about our energy system, is that as long as we are reliant on fossil fuels, we're reliant on a fuel that we import, we have no control over that price.
Right.
We are at the whims of the global oil market, which is controlled by people, sitting in places thousands of miles from here. So there are times when the fossil fuel prices go up, when they spike, for example.
Well, they're starting to go up again.
We've seen spikes a number of times in the past decade or so for a variety of reasons. For things that are completely out of our control. The tsunami disaster in Japan that actually caused the price of fuel oil in Japan to go up, and the price of fuel oil here went up. So being sort of captive to those economic forces means we don't have much control as long as we are using fossil fuels. The more we shift to local energy resources, the more we use renewable energy like solar, where we have a fixed cost, we know what it will cost us over its lifetime,
I see.
the more we get a handle on that volatility. And so the C plus grade, I mean, it's a little bit more difficult to say that's the result of something we're doing. That's a combination of the things we've done to kind of lock in low energy prices for renewables, and then a little bit of this volatility, or I would say a lot of this volatility we're still subject to.
So we're talking about the system. I believe the figure was billions of dollars
of petroleum coming into the state per year?
On the order of $5 billion.
$5 billion a year for everything, for cars, industry, fuels, and all of that. Yeah, and not only that, but we are dependent on things that we can't control and things that are very far away. And it goes up and down. These two caught my eye. Smart Grid got a D. Why did you give them a D? Why did you give that part a D? What's happening there?
So the smart grid is a term that is today probably not perfectly defined, because this evolution of our electricity grid is something that everybody's still working on. What will it look like in 20 years? I don't think anybody really knows. We don't have the crystal ball. But we know there are some components that make up a smarter grid. And those components are things like energy storage, so that we can store renewable energy during the daytime to use at night, for example. A smart meter system. You know, right now our electricity meters at home typically tell us once a month how much energy we've used. I mean, that's like you go to the grocery store 6 times over the course of the month, and you just get one bill at the end. You have no idea how much you spent for milk or how
So
much
you
spent
really
for
can't make adjustments for efficiency.
Exactly. It makes it much harder. You can only manage what you measure. And so
Right.
this monthly billing is a little bit challenging for the consumer. It's also challenging for a utility who's trying to manage energy coming in off of rooftops, off of solar farms, off of power plants. Not having information in real time about how much energy is needed at different parts of the grid is a challenge. So smart meters, that's a phrase that means basically we get a communications network that covers the whole electricity grid and lets us know what's happening in different places in real time. And the third element we put into our smart grid category is electric vehicles. Now, you might think that should fall into transportation, and certainly the idea of electrifying transportation is part of the transportation goal and plan. But electric vehicles are rolling batteries that use electricity. In the long term, perhaps they can also supply electricity back to the grid.
If something happened to the main station, everybody can plug in their car and support the island.
Exactly.
That's pretty amazing. Well, the transportation sector got a little better grade. It got a D+. So what's happening there?
This is looking at the trend of what fossil fuels are we importing for our transportation needs.
I think right now there's about several thousand electric cars in the state.
We just crossed 5,000.
Yeah.
The 5,000th was registered about a month ago. So we're on our way.
And that's the
Transportation is not
second
just
state
cars.
in the U.S. So we're up at the second position of all the states in the U.S. in terms of registered electric cars. Is that correct?
Per capita.
Per
And
capita.
it changes all the time, right? It's like a
Okay.
horse race where there are a few states that EV adoption is happening faster than other places. Hawaii is certainly in that top tier, usually in the top 3 or so for per capita EV adoption.
So what would it take to say bring this D up to a C or B minus?
Well, it's not just cars. Transportation also means our trucks, commercial trucks. It also means our airplanes. You know, a lot of our people and goods were arriving here by airplane. And it also means our inter-island shipping. So there are a lot of components there. They all go into the grade. We have a goal. The state, not in law, but in a policy decision, is targeting electrifying all of our vehicles.
Energy report card from Blue Planet Foundation. Very good. I like the idea. And today, we're grateful to Peter Rossig, Senior Spokesman for Hawaiian Electric, and we're going to be interviewing him on the latest in energy. Had this issue with NextEra Energy, which was very controversial. In, I believe it was July, the PUC did not approve the merger with Hawaiian Electric.
Right.
So what did the utility have to do to reconfigure its resources, to take a new path? It had to reshuffle something after this plan.
Well, Jacob, you know, we started on our path to clean energy long before NextEra came to town. 2008, we signed the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative, as you know, and one of the reasons NextEra was even interested in this utility was that we are probably the leaders. The PUC said that that merger was not a good idea for Hawaii, and for us, we are simply rededicating ourselves to what we had already started long before they came, and that is we're committed to getting to renewable energy, clean energy for electricity generation. The state's goal is 100% by 2045. Our latest plan says we think we can do it by 2040. So there's no question that we were moving ahead. When we started in 2008, we had about 8 or 9% of our electric sales or renewable portfolio was renewable. We ended 2016 with 25%. So in the course of about 8 years, we have nearly tripled or tripled the amount of renewable energy on our system statewide, except for Kauai, which is its own utility, as you know. So for us today, NextEra is a distant memory.
Right.
And, it has no real, it didn't change where we were going, and it hasn't changed where we're going now. 79,500 rooftops in our service area have either installed or approved.
That's Oahu, Maui, and the Big Island?
And Molokai and Lanai.
Molokai.
The
Have
grid
you-
needs to be adapted from a system that has for almost 100 years been based on a central power station sending power out to all of the customers, to one in which the customers are sending power into the system and power is moving from customer to customer. So understandably, a grid like that has to be adopted. But we also have to be reasonable and fair. The people who can have solar are people who own a roof, and the rest of us, for example, I live in a condominium, I can't own rooftop solar. One of the things we're going to do, and we hope very soon for the Public Utilities Commission to give us a decision, is to move to what's called community or shared solar. And that would allow people who rent or people who live in condos like myself to buy into a solar project, not in their neighborhood, but somewhere else, and get the benefits of that cheaper solar. And
The power would be drawn in, and it could be far away, like within a few miles, or?
could be anywhere. And it's not, you don't take the power directly from the system. The power goes into the grid just like any other generated power. But you, as a person who has contributed to creating that solar, get the benefit of the cheaper solar that comes into the system. And in addition, we can put those things where they're the most efficient, most effective. And so it's good for the utility and it's good for the customer, particularly the customer who does not have a roof. And obviously there are many condos today that you can't even open the lanai doors, and
Yeah.
for that very reason.
Yeah.
So, definitely everybody has an incentive, both economically and environmentally, to be efficient with their use of energy. And that's a responsibility that falls on all of us. It just falls on us in different ways.
Okay, really good. And in terms of the smart grid, what's happened, say, over the last 2 or 3 years? Is the grid getting smarter?
Well, the grid is getting smarter, and we're getting smarter about the way we operate the grid. But if by the smart grid, you mean a system that involves every single customer and so forth, the Public Utilities Commission just asked us to take another look at the plan we had come up with. And so we're kind of going back to the drawing boards. By the middle of 2017, we need to submit a new plan to the Public Utilities Commission about how much we need to do and how we would propose to do it. We have a very interesting program right now that with a company called STEM Incorporated. They have installed...
That's STEM?
STEM Incorporated.
Mm-hmm.
They have installed in about 30 commercial businesses batteries and energy management systems. And those are all connected to the grid, to the central system. And it totals about 1 megawatt of storage. So for a business, they're able to save energy during the day, and if they have rooftop solar on their system, it can come from that, or they can take energy overnight when it's less expensive from the utility. And they can use that to balance their load during the day and save money. With STEM, we've also put the same kind of energy management software into all public schools in the state. And so all those public schools now are able to monitor their own energy use. And as the governor's plan for cooling classrooms comes into play, more and more it will be incumbent on the school to figure out how to make best use of their energy. And these systems allow them to do that. It's also a teaching tool, by the way. Kids can sign in and go to the portal and see what's happening as well. But for the managers of these schools, it gives them an eye on something they've never been able to see before, and that is how they use energy.
And with all these end users, the big question is, what about cybersecurity? Is it going to be separate from the internal workings of the utility itself?
No, cybersecurity is very much on our minds. We have very advanced systems. I can't tell you about them. Bad joke, I have to say. If I tell you, I'll have to, yeah. But, we don't discuss them, but we have a very energetic security system, cybersecurity and physical security. We have a lot of equipment, substations, boxes, poles, all that stuff's out there in the community. And, our worst worry is taggers.
Good. And one more quick question. The idea of transportation. Right now we have about 5,000 electric vehicles registered in the state. Is the utility doing something to further that, or is it just going to be a matter of filling the need when it grows?
No, we're very active. Hawaiian Electric has been traditionally for many years, and recently in the current electric vehicle movement, we are very active. We have permission from our commission to install 25 fast chargers around the state. We've got about
25 more?
25 total. We're about halfway there. A couple on the Big Island, a couple on Maui, and the remainder, 10 or 11 on this island on Oahu. This enables a person to recharge a flat battery in about 20 minutes. So that helps to deal with range anxiety. We have a time of use rate program that will encourage people to charge their vehicles when the cost is lowest and when there's the most electricity, including renewable electricity on the grid. We have joined with 7 other organizations, Drive Electric Hawaii, an initiative that is aimed precisely at getting more electric vehicles onto our system, more electrification of transportation generally. We talk mostly about electric vehicles, electric automobiles, but there are electric motorcycles, there are electric bikes, there are personal transportation devices that run on electricity. There are buses, and we've been working with the city and county to bring in electric buses as soon as they're able to do that. So we are very energetically pursuing that. The electrification of transportation is coming. And 5,000 electric vehicles is in one way a lot, and in another way, if you look at 1 million cars on these islands, it's not as much, it's not what we need, which is why we all got together with these other very important stakeholders and said, we've got to organize, create this Drive Electric Hawaii initiative, and look at all the different ways we can go after the solutions.
Drive Electric Hawaii.
Drive Electric Hawaii.
Okay, very good. Thanks a lot for your time today.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. And we're here today with Jose Dizon, who's the general manager of Paniolo Power LLC, which is a subsidiary of Parker Ranch on the Big Island. Parker Ranch has incredible potential for wind and for solar.
130,000 acre ranch.
130,000 acres. I didn't add it all up. It's almost like we've reached a new time and place when everybody does something different. The telephone company puts out movies. People have to diversify. Now, cattle ranchers, are they going to be putting out power because they have the massive amounts of land that are needed for big grid scale projects?
And that totally makes sense. You look at wind projects where the towers are very high, it's compatible with cattle ranching. It doesn't interfere with ranching at all. Solar PV, the panels could be placed high enough to where you could out ranch with goats and sheep. So,
and they're compatible.
They're compatible. Totally
the
compatible
goats, the
with
sheep,
ranching.
the cows. I guess as long as you put a fence around the solar panels, they're not going to mess with it.
You could even have them eat the grass under the panels.
And they're not bothered by
and
it.
they're not bothered by it. Yeah,
That's amazing. That's what I call compatibility.
yeah.
Well, there are a lot of cattle ranches in the Midwest who've got tremendous possibilities for wind generation of power. I'm sure there's ranches all over the world that perhaps could look into this.
And the typical average capacity factors for wind on these large farms is between 25 to 30%. What's nice about the Big Island is on Parker Ranch, our wind potential is double that, about 61%. So even more so, the wind resource on the Big Island is very valuable, very unique. It's very world-class, as it is. So perfect combination to work with pump storage, hydro, which is an energy storage resource, PV, the potential for geothermal, and other technologies that are available, not just on the ranch, but on other parts of the Big Island, just to get us to 100% renewable energy faster.
Well, I listened to a video by your CEO, Neil Dutch Kuiper. He was talking about measuring resources. It seems like you've measured your resources, that your efforts with Siemens, with NextEra, with Booz Allen, you've got a body of data.
Yes.
At this point. That was step one, to know what you've got. The next step is to secure an operating partner.
We are actively engaging developers.
Local developers, mainland developers? Who are you
Mainland,
talking to?
international developers, and international developers.
Can you give me an idea how many you're talking to right now that have shown expressed interest?
I'm talking to several, 3 or 4.
National, international?
National and international developers who are interested in developing the resources on Parker Ranch to ultimately develop a project where they would sign a power purchase agreement with the utility to make that electricity available to all of the customers, and they would pay for this energy at rates lower than what they're currently paying the utility. So it's very exciting. It's very exciting. And we are vetting these developers to make sure that we pick the ones that are best for Parker Ranch, for our community, and understand the unique lifestyle that we have.
Of course, the
Island.
Parker Ranch has started off with what the first operation was 5 cows back in 1778. Parker Ranch, the actual entity, began operating around 1800s or so.
1847.
1847, and then it's been grown and it's become part of the community since. So I'm sure it wants to take care of the land and also at the same time do something with it to help the community and maybe develop a new product.
Absolutely, and we feel we have an obligation to give back to the community. The community has been so good to the ranch. We have 7 generations of cowboys that have been working on the ranch. 7 generations.
The Paniolos.
The Paniolos.
I just
Exactly.
found out that it comes from the origin Espanol,
That's
which
correct.
means Spanish, because I think that Spanish cowboys were brought in originally.
vaqueros.
The vaqueros.
Yes.
And so Espanol became Paniolo.
Right. So they would call them, I'd say we, but they would call them Espanol. And then, of course, instead of vaquero, Espanol,
Yeah.
just Spanish. And
So
then from
the-
Espanol, it turned into Paniolo.
Paniolo. Well, that's Paniolo is easier, I guess. So okay, so then securing capital. We're looking at a magnitude of hundreds of millions. Would this be considered experimental and risky by potential loan operations or investors?
Not at all. We've been to the investment community, and there are a lot of firms that want to invest in renewable energy projects and want to invest in renewable energy projects in Hawaii. And they see the potential high capacity factors or just the rich potential of wind and solar and pump storage, and they are willing to invest in our state. Investment capital is not a problem. The couple $100 million project on Parker Ranch, potentially for wind, pump storage, and PV, I think it's just a drop in the bucket. If you were to replace Helco's annual cost of oil, which is about $250 million, just a little over $250 million, and look at the unamortized capital of that, assuming that was an annual payment, that $250 million equates to about $2.6 billion in investment.
So shifts petroleum money into the renewable
locally
energy.
generated wind and solar and renewable resources. on the
So
big end.
you would just basically need some working capital with the knowledge that there's savings already because there would be less fossil fuel that would need to be purchased.
Exactly.
So it's not that risky. It's not like somebody just giving money and hoping that something will work, right?
I would think it's a no-brainer.
Okay. And then in terms of supplying island power, how would that work? How could you supply power to Hilo or to Pahoa or those areas?
So right now, the plan is to use the existing transmission and distribution lines from the electric utility. So the power generated by wind, pump storage, solar, geothermal, biomass, whatever, would connect to the Helco, to the utility grid, and from there it supplies power to all the customers.
Okay, very good. Let's see if there are any other questions. Anything else you'd like to bring up in terms of the development of power, the usage of power? Is it a regulatory issue right now? Is it legislative? It seems like things look good, but yet you've had trouble. It's been an uphill climb.
I think a lot of it is education with the utility. I like the fact that the Public Utilities Commission has been very proactive and transformational. If there's a group that's been transformational,
There have been some changes there.
yeah, it's the Public Utilities Commission. You have to give them credit for really pushing the envelope. I think between New York and Hawaii, those are the two leaders in renewable energy, those commissions. A lot of prosumers out there now. These are
Prosumers.
prosumers, not consumers, but the folks who are involved in their own energy products, the folks that own their own solar PV on their roofs, the folks that want
In other
to
words,
control their...
Cutting off the grid or disconnecting from the grid?
Not necessarily disconnecting on the grid, but wants to control their own destiny with energy.
People like to do that.
They do. They like to tinker. Now, some of them would rather not have to do that, but there are a lot more people nowadays, and it's growing, that would like to have more control of their energy destiny. So what is that new business model or that new paradigm that we're going to go to in the future? Will it continue to be the vertically integrated utility that we've had for the past 100 years? Are we going to migrate towards some sort of competitive market or retail wheeling, where eventually maybe a neighbor with a large solar PV system could provide or offer power to the neighbors across the street? We don't have that.
Let me ask you this. Reliability is really important when it comes to electricity.
Yes.
Would a private system be considered as reliable as, say, Hawaiian Electric, which has been doing this for over 100 years?
It can, and it has worked in the past. It really depends how the legislature and how the regulators, the Public Utilities Commission, structure the competitive bidding environment or the competitive market environment or the future electricity business model. So reliability is key. That's all part of that new paradigm looking at in the future. You know, how can we make sure that reliability is better, the same or better, in a new environment where we could potentially reduce rates in a more competitive environment.
Okay, well, it looks like there's going to be an interesting future, so good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
Great
for being
talking
with
to
us today.
Thank you.
Today we're with Henry Curtis, who's with Life of the Land. Life of the Land has been around for a long time. They've been handling environmental causes for, what, decades, right, Henry?
We started in February of 1970.
Can you tell me, in terms of the progress, what's been going on from your vantage point?
Well, some people believe that the year and a half we spent with NextEra trying to take over Hawaiian Electric Company was a period of wasted time. But actually, I think it awoken say, the people and the players and the community awake so that we can move forward. And a lot of things came out during this sort of transition period. When the Public Utilities Commission ended net energy metering, I think that took a lot of people by shock, because certainly with all the rooftop solar that's been popping up, it reached sort of a critical mass, and it sort of made solar very popular. People became aware of it, and more of it started coming into the community. But at the same time, it put a lot of stress on the grid, on how the grid could absorb it all, and therefore we're entering into discussions on how we continue that snowball.
So the possible merger actually generated promotion for renewable energy and clean energy then?
Yes, it did.
That's interesting. However, on the flip side, it created a problem.
It did create a problem in that here a big corporation from somewhere else wanted to take us over, and a lot of people looked at it as very negatively. And yes, they're not the type of company we want in Hawaii, but a lot of transformation occurred during that period.
You know, sometimes that's what happens. You don't exactly do what you expect to do, but something else comes and you learn from it.
Right.
Well, over the last, say, 2 years or so, 3 years, what have you been involved in?
Well, Hawaii, when you look around the world and you look at islands or isolated grids that are not grid tied to somewhere else, they're not an island with an extension cord to some continent, and they don't have large amounts of base load like hydroelectric. We have a lot of intermittent like wind and solar, and therefore we are on the cutting edge of the world in figuring out how to integrate large amounts of intermittent power.
Hawaii is known for tourism, but I think it's starting to get very well known for its move and push into clean and renewable energy, and I think the world is looking at us right now.
Yes, the world is looking at us to see how we do it.
Mm-hmm. So, in terms of the progress, a few years ago it was the initiative, the Clean Energy Initiative, was 70% renewable energy by 2030, and now it's 100% by 2045.
We're moving down in the right direction, but the way we're measuring it is incorrect. We need somebody actually who understands math, who understands what percentage means. And we also need to clean up the definition of renewables.
Okay, well let's get a little bit more simple then. So instead of numbers, how would you grade the progress over the last 2-3 years in terms of a letter grade?
I would give it maybe an A-.
Really? Oh, that's pretty good.
A- for electricity.
Uh-huh.
When you consider that electricity is a little over a quarter of the energy that we use in this state, and we have done virtually nothing on transportation.
Transportation is part of the Clean Energy Initiative.
We have never created a benchmark for transportation. We have never said by 2050 we'll have only electric and biofuel powered vehicles. That would be a goal. And so we need to actually start benchmarking and doing something about it.
So we're talking about cars that, say, you and I would drive. What about commercial vehicles? What about trucks? I mean, that...
Well, the amazing thing about vehicles is that the average vehicle is parked 97% of the time. And 1/3 of all the surface area of cities are parking spaces and roads. And if you simply shrunk the number of vehicles that we have, but use them on a regular basis, you could have 1/30 of the vehicles.
You mean like share a car?
Like share a car, like Uber a car, like driverless a car. You could have 1/30 of the cars and yet service everybody. Yeah.
Well, that's it would take an entrepreneur to figure that one out.
We have to start with pilot projects. That's the way we have done it with solar. We decided to go in and test it and see if it worked. We need to try it out here. Try it in Honolulu. Try it in Hilo. See what happens.
Well, as long as the car had Wi-Fi, I'd go for it.
Okay.
Okay, so tell me, do you think enough is being done by the state at this point to reach that 2045 mark?
We'll reach it in electricity. The question really is whether it has any impact on greenhouse gas emissions and total energy use. I'm sure we're going to reach it on electricity, but we need to tackle boats, we need to tackle airplanes, we need to tackle cars and trucks. Because right now, people fly into Hawaii using enormous amounts of fuel on the plane. They stay at hotels that largely don't have green energy. And they tour Hawaii. We need to start getting everybody to use far more renewable energy.
Understood, understood. And what about your regular people? People like residents, people like who they're involved with their families in the workaday world. All these things going on. How could you convince them to look? Well, what are we doing here? Is it community?
The amazing thing, and one of the issues that is coming up now, is that the utility will say, look at these skyscrapers we have, these tall buildings, and look at the small roof space they have, and there's just no way they can produce solar to meet their own needs. In Texas, they hang solar panels off lanais. In Europe and Australia, they're looking at coating buildings with solar panels.
We have a more uniform code, is that the idea? A restrictive code for
No, we don't have
the
a
way building
restrictive
looks?
code, we have more of a restrictive mentality.
Ah.
We're not considering all the possibilities. In Makiki, there's a single house with 3 little propellers on the roof. We're getting used to the idea of solar panels, but until we start seeing propellers pop up, you need a certain snowball effect.
And the propellers to create the power.
Yes. Can you imagine a runner running down the street at night, hard to see? They have a beanie or a hat on with a tiny little propeller up there and it flashing light. Then people see that and they start thinking, okay, this is another way of generating renewable energy. We need to sort of break open from the limited areas we're looking at and look at all the possibilities.
So it takes 1 or 2 people to be the pace setter.
And then it takes a group of people to start launching it. And then once it pops out like rooftop solar, then everybody says, wow, that's marvelous. I think we need to get more community groups, more cultural groups. We need to get different kinds of people involved in energy because it's a very critical issue. And through what we're doing on rooftop solar, through our innovation on renewable energy, we're actually shaping global policies.